can make the greatest difference is our own mind. There's a prayer that Rinpoche said to me once. The first time was in 1999. I went to represent Rinpoche in an inter-religious conference in Israel. And during this encounter, it was a jubileum. It was between 1999 2000. I think it was 1999, and there were great leaders of world religions, including the Dalai Lama, and it was also the birthday of the sister of my grandmother, who turned 85, and at that time I had a meeting with the Dalai Lama, and Rinpoche said to me, when you go to an important master, if there's a request that you need to ask, you should ask Semla Chudro, may the mind become the Dharma, may the Dharma become the path, and may the path be free of interferences. And and that among everything that happened in that trip, that advice that Rinpoche gave me is what stayed with me more than anything. Also, I went to, I've asked this blessing to many teachers, and this comes from this intention, sem chu sudro, lamsu chudro. So may the mind become the Dharma, may the Dharma become the path. This shows us that the Dharma is a mental state. The Dharma is not understood as, when we say with the mind, may the mind become the Dharma. Dharma is not understood as some kind of like specific graphic. No, it's a mental state, and the path also is a mental state. So what's the difference? May the mind become the Dharma. The ordinary mind, our ordinary mind, and then that mind that we call Dharma. What's the difference? In this moment, most of us, even if we get close to a spiritual path, even if we try to learn the prayers, the philosophy, and the practices, which is wonderful, but very often, not always, luckily, but very often, if we look with total sincerity, our motivation that's behind has to do with this life, doesn't it? Many of us, we get close to Buddhism to have an intention, an intention to help us feel better, to be better, which is fine, which to help us to have more stability, to not have as much fear, anxiety, or to overcome conflicts or traumas, to have more peace with others, etc. This is marvelous. And it really helps, and that's good. I'm not saying that this is wrong. But that's the first phase, that's sem, that's the mind, that's our ordinary mind. As for the mind to become the Dharma, we need to go beyond the needs of this same life, which doesn't mean to not take care of it, but to live life not in an end in and of itself, but as a tool that goes beyond, something that's worth much more. So we don't. Also, we can look at life not in a linear way, but in a cyclic way. Our tendency is to, in our social cultural context in which we've grown up, we have this tendency, to see we have birth, and then you go, and at a certain point there's death, and then maybe there's another point, maybe it's a hell or a heaven or some kind of rebirth. But our tendency is to see life as something linear. And in the context in which Buddha taught, cyclical. Um, um, Life is cyclical. That life is what comes after death, and death is after death there will be life again. There's a continuity. So the beginning and end are just two sides of the same thing. Because every time something begins, it's because there's something that ended. Every time something ends, inevitably there's something that's going to begin. There's no birth without there having been death. There's no death without the birth to come. So this cyclic vision brings us inevitably to change our own perspectives, to change our priorities, because when we have a linear view, what becomes important is what we do. I have one possibility to be here in this life. I have one just sole possibility to be in this body. You have this life. Life is once, there's also this saying that you only live once, so you should enjoy it. But imagine that at a certain point, one realizes really that life is, this is just one of millions of lives. Because in reality, what happens is, every time you die, you're reborn, and then you die and you're reborn again. And if we were able to just see from afar and see, it's amazing. Imagine it's true that every day of our lives is important, but you know, if you don't do it today, you do it tomorrow. You wake up and then you do something, you go to bed, Normally we say, okay, like if you want to do something and you don't manage to do it that day, you say, oh, well, there's always tomorrow, and we have this idea. But what happens is when we're able to have this vision of more continuity, seeing from afar, we see that life is not just one, but it's one of millions and billions. I don't know how to classify it because there's not a number, it's innumerable, but there's a certain repetition. It's as if, it's like to understand the macro, you need to understand the micro. This life is is it is it a linear, straight path, or is it within this life? Is it cyclical? In this same life, how many times have we not repeated the same dynamics? How many times have we not found ourselves in the same situations and lived the same thing? We wake up, we eat, we do what we need to do during the day, then we go to sleep, and the next day we wake up again. Our days are quite repetitive somehow. And when we see this cyclical aspect, what becomes important is not what we're doing, but what we are becoming. At the end of the day, what I did ended with that day, and I don't bring it with me. But what I have become, that I'm bringing with me. Just look in the life of each one of us. Things have happened in our adolescence or childhood, or at some point in our life, that were events that have shaped us somehow. And even if that event is over and there's no sign of it, we're still marked by that event, and it can also condition how we live our daily life. Can't it? Even today, you can see people, even men, women, mature adults who are still suffering because they stole their ice cream from them at school when they were 5 years old, or anything else. So what happens is, what happens, it starts and ends, but how we live that, what stays inside of us, that's what we bring with us. It's like one day after the next. I mean, it's like day after day. There's always a different movie, but 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 we're always there, and we're always influenced by everything we see. We're not indifferent to what we experience. So for for our life, for the mind to become the Dharma, it's important to have a cyclical vision of life within this, first of all, with this lifetime, and then to be able to amplify it to more lives. But let's begin with this one, because I observe myself, and I see that there are some aspects that are cyclical. There are some ways, there are situations that repeat themselves. And when I see people around me, the people who come to talk to me, or even without talking to me, something that's very clear is this fact that there are certain types of situations in people's lives that just repeat themselves. And somebody could say, oh, look how unlucky I am. This always happens to me. This always happens to me. No, the only thing, the the only the only common denominator, among the situations we live is ourselves, because we are a part of the creator of the reality that we live. I don't mean to say that that everything's an illusion and that we create everything, but we are not able to live anything independently of the filter of ourselves. And when there's something that is not resolved inside of ourselves, until that thing is resolved, it's going to keep reflecting back at us. So when we find ourselves, when we face a situation that's difficult, and let's say that can happen sometimes, there are different ways that we can react. One way is to try to eliminate the situation as quickly as possible. I'm not well in this situation. I just want it to end, and I move away from the person. I try to close up that situation, so it just ends. Another attitude is to observe and see, okay, if I'm not living this situation well, it's because there's something inside of me that is resonating. There's something I need to learn. My path isn't about just moving away from everything that hurts me, but instead I should learn how to be well in every situation. That it would be our objective. And then along the path, we need to remember that there are times where we're not ready to do that. We don't have the strength to find our balance in a difficult situation. So sometimes we need that first step of moving away from a situation that we're living badly, to then see it with other eyes and change our attitude. Not to move away thinking that that's the solution, but as it being part of the path. I don't know if this difference is clear, but the solution is inside of us. So what's explained very clearly in certain teachings is, I can't meditate on patience when I'm angry, for example. In other words, I can't cultivate the antidote when I am just overwhelmed by poison. I can't apply the process of the healing process when I'm suffering from pain. First, I need to I need to move away. I need to overcome the pain and then begin the treatment, a deeper treatment. But our problem is that mostly we just want to eliminate the symptom and we move away from the object and we think that the solution that's the solution and the situation is fixed. But we need to understand that we live in a cyclical reality, that things repeat themselves, and we live our world through ourselves. And if I'm not well, then then one of the first steps for the mind to become the Dharma is to grow up a little bit and stop victimizing ourselves. So it's something that we do. Buddha said, "Danye, Danye, I am my own protector, I am my own enemy." With Rinpoche, with self-healing, spoke um, about that we are the ones who harm ourselves, and we're the ones who can um, benefit ourselves, can be good to ourselves. So first of all, we need to stop victimizing ourselves, stop blaming our suffering on someone else, something else. Mostly because, I can cry all my lifetime. I can cry my whole lifetime that somebody's hurting me, but that's not going to change the situation. Often it's happened to me that, to give advice to people who weren't well, who had conflictual situations, or like two people that are, so two people who were in conflict come to ask for advice, and they, because if you come and talk to me about, if you come to me to talk about something, a problem that you have, I'll talk about what you can do or what I can do, but I'm not going to talk about what the other one should do. Because what purpose does that what the purpose does that have? That would just to victimize oneself more, or to um, or to um, validate one's aversion, there are three possibilities: what I can do, what you can do, or what we can do together. But it's useless to talk about the other person. But I've seen often when people, when I see that when people come to complain and talk about a bad situation is difficult with someone else, so they're expecting to hear about how wrong that behavior, that person is, just to, you know, yeah, um, just to validate the aversion. Instead we look at what you can do, what I can do, and we need to look at what we can do. So, and if I'm not well in a certain situation, what can I do? How can I face the situation better? This is the first thing. And then in certain situations, I agree, we need to create distance, to breathe more, and then we need to apply an antidote and change our dynamics. Otherwise, we're going to find ourselves in the very similar situation. And this doesn't happen just within one lifetime, but this happens from lifetime to lifetime on a deeper level. The dynamics that we find ourselves, the dynamics that we bring to situations, we find that again and again. I don't want to be reborn lazy, for example. When we see a small child, for example, do are children born absolutely pure and the same, or are they different? Those of you who have had more than one child, very well. Even twins with the same DNA, etc. They're different, regardless of genetics. So I don't want to be a tantrum throwing child, full of conflicts and is not well. I imagine none of you do. So I need to learn how to be good, to be well now, so that I can also project being well in the future. Because if I escape from a situation because I'm not well in that situation, I'm going to find myself in another. Maybe for a short time I'm fine, but then it's going to come up again that I'm not well, because that conflict that I have inside me is going to come out and reflect back at me again. And I'm going to keep projecting. So it becomes important for us to understand that every situation that we live tool, is a tool for our own growth, a tool to see ourselves. We have this strange sensation every once in a while that that life is lived somewhere else, that it's not here and now. I don't know if that's clear. As if those you know these important moments of the life are going to happen at some point. Instead, life is here, this instant, right now. It's here, where we should not allow ourselves to reinforce, to nourish dynamics that are harmful. And every moment is an opportunity for that. So one of the first steps for the mind to become the Dharma is understanding that every situation is an opportunity to transform ourselves, to become more mature, to be more benefit to others, and not wait that for one day something to happen. It's like in the Lojong teachings, it's repeated many times in the mind training teachings. Every situation is a tool, an opportunity, and if we're able to actually take advantage of this opportunity, is another um, is another is something else. Sometimes we're not able; we just let it pass. But I know this among the first steps is going beyond our needs that we live daily. In other words, go beyond what I want, what I don't want. Be a little bit less of a slave of our own desires. Do not victimize ourselves in front of the world, and have more desires that are higher. I want to be at peace with myself. The Rinpoche speaks, peace speaking, peace looking. I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of times did he repeat the inner peace is the most solid foundation for the peace, for world peace? But forget world peace. Let's talk about peace at home, peace at work, peace at school, peace. You know, its most solid foundation for this peace comes from inside, and each one needs to take his own responsibility for this, saying, I'm going to do my part. So we shouldn't victimize ourselves in the face of the world. Understand that every moment is an opportunity to grow, and we have this marvelous opportunity because of among all the people that I know. Um, you should do this too. Look around at all the people around you. I mean, how many people have an opportunity? I don't mean to say that they've understood, but they have the opportunity to understand that their own suffering comes from inside out and not from outside in. Most of us, we spend our lives simply trying to obtain objects of desire, avoid objects of aversion, and then holding on to objects of attachment. I mean, these are the dynamics that we go round continuously. It's important to take a step back and want to go beyond. When we say may the mind become the Dharma, one of the important aspects is being able to transcend this living only to gain objects of desire, or keeping objects of attachment and avoiding objects of aversion, but understanding that I need to transform my desire, my aversion, my attachment, and transform into something healthier, more beneficial. This is the part of transforming one's mind into the Dharma. When this first step is concluded, which is we get to in Tibetan, which is called Nechung, is when we have a deep, deep intention of growth, a deep when we're mature in the sense that there's a strong, deep desire to be well with ourselves and with the world, and understanding that this comes from inside to out, not from outside in. And this is translated as definite emergence. So it requires also a strong faith in oneself, confidence and faith. So when we recite these words of aspiration, may the mind become the Dharma, we're creating an aspiration for me to go beyond living a life that just turns around itself, and instead use this life and those that come after, the lives that come after. But first this one, may use this life to grow as a person and to gradually reach a deeper state of peace and stability and wisdom. May I be able to go beyond my own selfishness and that continuous I and my and desire and aversion. Now let's say it as it is. It's really tiresome. I mean, how many times have we've been just focused on the I and the my, because this person said this, that person said that, and did this, and he looked at me this way, and I looked at me like this. I mean, at a certain point, we say, okay, let's go beyond. I mean, we've already paid. We've already. Something that's interesting for me to observe, as I said at the beginning, speaking Tibetan, a virtuous mind. When the mind is virtuous, then the stages and the paths are virtuous. And when the mind is negative, the stages and the path are negative. How can I say? The mind, as we said at the beginning, is an incredibly powerful tool that we have, because it's through the mind that we perceive and relate with the reality. And at the same time, it's something that is something so easy to change. Just change your point of view, the projection, and then reality that in front of you changes. But not knowing how to distinguish between our projection and the reflection that comes back at us, or better, seeing those two things as being separate, we're not able to access this amazing power to change our reality. And changing the mind really is so easy, but at the same time so difficult. difficult because we don't believe it. Even no matter, we say, oh, all phenomenon are are independent, are free of, sorry, you know, all phenomena are are empty of inherent existence, and all phenomena are interdependent. We all, we repeat again and again, oh, I'm not listening to words, I'm just listening to sounds that come back to which I attribute a word. But, we hear this and we say this again and again. But then we have this tendency to see as if the reality that we're projecting is an autonomous, independent, solid reality, or we projecting that we're a victim in this world. So in reality, changing reality is very easy, simple. It's by changing what we project. But it's not easy because, first of all, we don't believe it. So at least try to observe that as long as I stay trapped in these dynamics, in this these problematic way that I relate to things, I can change people, situations, and places. I'm going to relive the same situations. I think many of you have had this experience. But this shows us that according to how I am, that's what I am projecting and reflecting to the world. So my objective is no longer about changing situations, but it's changing my own reflection and understanding that we have this power, this deep, strong power. Sem Chu Sutro, may the mind become the Dharma. May every moment, every thought bring me onto the path that takes me out of samsara. For the mind to become the Dharma, we need to deeply understand that all permeating suffering is suffering. We need to to set our objectives as to our objective to no longer be a slave of our mental defilements and our actions. Then there's the path. There's the path, and we'll talk about that in another time. But if it's bringing the mind to the Dharma would be something already marvelous, So the path would be the five paths. So once I want to get out of samsara, once I want to develop myself spiritually as my life's priority, then there are the different steps to take. May I be able to follow those paths. May I be able to grow. And at the last point, along this path, the last one, may there not be interferences, external, internal, secret, things that block this path of growth. That's what we mean by interferences. Par means Tibetan, par like Bardo. It means between. It is intermediate. Chu is to cut. So something that's going to like cut something that's happening. Yes, interference. So in these three aspirational prayers, I add a fourth. So for there not to be interferences is impossible. I mean, it's what I've seen up till now. So I add, may we be able to transform interferences into the path. So may the mind become the path. May the path become the Dharma. May the path be free of interferences, and may the interferences help us along our path. to this first point. May the mind become the Dharma. May we become more mature, less slaves of our desires, aversions, and things we want, don't want. It go beyond this and live this life as a tool, as a means, in simple words. Just it is a means to become a better person, a way to always help people more and more. And then if you want, we can add lots of Buddhist terms, but in just simple words, if we live in this way, our perspective really changes, because every situation becomes an opportunity, and it's not important anymore if the thing goes well or not well. It's how I want it, how I don't want it. What's important is how I'm living that situation. This is what becomes important. Because to be a slave of our desires is a huge trap. To always trying to adapt the world and how we want it, how we think things should be, is terrible. Instead, just allow ourselves to go beyond and try to see that every situation, it's not about what I'm doing, but how I'm doing it, how I'm cultivating that situation for growth. And I just one more time we try not to victimize ourselves, not to blame ourselves, and not to blame others, but see that we're in a complex interdependence. And what we do is of great importance, and how we can take advantage of every opportunity that the situations bring us. Now let's do our dedications for today.
Ame kutse rapten chi nam karatin le chokchur gepa dan losan tempe drume sasum ki drowe muse tatu ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama dan dralme cheki pela longche chi sadan lamge yunte rabzo ne dorje change koba nyur tobe sho nimo dele tsendele nime kunyan delek shin ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumke jingi lo kuncho sumke ngodruba tsol kuncho sumke trashi shon.
At dawn or at dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to have all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Have a good day.